We've got more breaking news today. The Mets make a massive move, securing a future ace as it's Tong time. So stay tuned only here on Mets Digest to hear everything you need to know about the number 4 prospect in the Mets system ahead of his big league debut. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. We're going to talk about the Georgia native, but first we got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. He's here. Jonah Tong is with the big league club. He will be joining the Masons on Friday, as every major outlet is breaking this news. SNY, MLB, even the MLB Twitter themselves are posting this. You also got Anthony Tacoma, Andy Martino, anyone local or even national is bringing this up, as Jonah Tong absolutely sprung through the minor league system. We'll get into that when we talk statistics. Now, it is a bit of a surprising move, as according to the MLB Twitter, he is going to start on Friday night. Multiple other sources are saying this, which I find surprising because that is actually David Peterson's spot, who has been a very, very reliable starting pitcher all year for the Mets. He's been the only one really giving them length, with the exception of Nolan McLean in his 2 starts. So I find it very interesting that Tong is going to be taking the spot of Peterson, so to speak, although I don't believe he's going to be replacing Peterson. They might just push DP back until Saturday for his start, which would make more sense because he most recently pitched Sunday, and the Mets have 16 consecutive games that they're currently in the midst of. So in all honesty, it kind of makes a lot of sense to put him there. So now the real question is, who is he going to replace? Now, based on how the starting pitching is going to be considered moving forward, you got Sean Manaea tonight against the Phillies. Then tomorrow it's Clay Holmes. The game after that will be Tong. And then presumably, the game after that is Peterson. It'll likely be, believe it or not, Kodai Senga, who is losing the starting pitcher role, or will be moved as a 6-man. So we'll see how the Mets play that out. But if there's anyone that is to go, I would not think it'd be Kodai Senga. Now, that ERA looks great at a 2.73. Keep in mind, Senga, when he got hurt, was in the 1.3s, maybe 1.4s. He was looking incredible when he got injured, and it's been a disaster since. But Sean Manaea has also been awful. Clay Holmes has been okay. He's coming off a good start, but he's been cold of late. All 3 of these guys have been ice cold of late on the mound. But it's very interesting to see Senga being the one that's quote-unquote on the chopping block. Again, nothing is announced from inside the Mets about how they're going to proceed. Are they going to go with a 6-man rotation? I believe that makes the most sense. Instead of putting a guy like Senga in the bullpen, I think Holmes in the bullpen would make the most sense theoretically, because he already has 137 1/3 innings pitched, the most out of any of these guys, and a top 3 on the Mets in terms of innings pitched. I believe actually he's number 2. So he's pitched a lot of innings. He's a natural bullpen arm, so throwing him back in the pen would theoretically make the most sense. But based on when everyone is scheduled to pitch and the fact that Tong can't pitch until Friday, and it's confirmed that he's pitching Friday, I find it very interesting that Senga might be the one on the block. So I'll keep you guys updated to see what we're doing there in terms of the Mets. Are they going with a 6-man rotation? Are they staying with a 5? Who is Jonah Tong replacing? So what do the president of baseball operations have to say? Let's focus this on Jonah Tong, because that, of course, is the focus of today's video. He said, as you roll into the last month of the season, you want to have the best roster you possibly can. Keep in mind when this move was made. We are just a couple of days away from September. It is August 26th. If the Mets called him up September 1st or later, he would be considered a September call-up and therefore would not be eligible for the postseason roster. So Jonah Tong is going to be around in the postseason. He is eligible for the playoff roster. That's a big thing to consider when you talk about this move. We think Jonah has the chance to be among that. So Stearns might think that Jonah Tong is capable of starting a postseason game at bare minimum, coming in relief, maybe some bulk innings, maybe even some high leverage situations. David Stearns, the president of baseball operations, he talked about calling up Jonah Tong and having the best players with the Mets down the stretch. You can look at that clip, and there's probably a press conference as well on it. So go check that out if you want to. But let's focus again on Tong. He is lethal with historic numbers. Pitching prospects with a strikeout percentage over 28 and a ground ball percentage over 48. Think David Peterson gets a ton of ground balls, but also a huge strikeout aspect, almost like an Edwin Diaz as a starter. Robbie Snelling, Jonah Tong, and Trey Gibson. Snelling is the number 4 prospect in the Miami Marlins system, number 79 in all of baseball, according to MLB Pipeline, and Gibson is number 12. Now, we'll talk about all of this advanced data in just a little bit, as Tong leads the group in strikeout percentage with an absolutely insane 40.5% strikeout rate. Now, let's do some simple math here. You put 40.5% strikeouts, and it says over 48%. So even if that is the bare minimum at 48% of Tong getting ground balls, that is nearly 99, or rather 89% of everything coming from ground balls and strikeouts. Just about 11% coming in the air, and that is bare minimum. Jonah Tong does not allow a lot of balls in the air, therefore limits the home run numbers and limits the damage against him. He's also got a 1.43 ERA this year to go with it, and is making his MLB debut, as we heard, on Friday against the Miami Marlins. But before we talk advanced metrics, we got to talk about the more simple stuff, starting it off with a prospect outlook. 22 years of age, ETA was 2026. I'll admit I was someone that thought he was coming up in 2026. I didn't think the Mets were calling him up in 25. I thought if anyone else was coming to the big league roster from a prospect aspect, it would be Brandon Sproat, who's the number 5 prospect in the Mets system, according to Pipeline. But we're going to get Tong. I hope they didn't rush him here. I don't think they did. I think Tong is ready for it, and we'll take a look at the statistics that prove it. In fact, he's made 2 minor league starts in AAA, just 2 in Syracuse. So take with that what you want. We'll look at the stats in just a little bit, but I think those 2 stats proved he's MLB ready. Again, we'll talk that later. 22 years of age, 6'1", 180 pounds, double righty, a 7th round pick back in 2022 with really, really good scouting grades. Again, 20 to 80 scale for a prospect on all of these numbers on everything here that you see. 20 being the worst, 80 being the best. So a fastball at 65 is really solid. Curveball at 55, slider not as great at 45, changeup 55, control 45 for an overall 55 prospect. Definitely very solid. So let's turn it over to MLB.com. They got you with the prospect outlook. The Ontario native, he is actually the 13th New York Met ever from Canada, headed stateside to the Georgia Premier Academy and MLB Draft League in 2022. And while he didn't quite stand out in the latter, he still went in the 7th round to the Mets that July, signing for a full slot at $226,000. He was limited to only 10 appearances between the Florida Complex and Florida State leagues, very low single-A leagues, and rookie ball leagues in 2023, and then erupted onto the scene in his 2nd full season. He rose from single-A Port St. Lucie, the lower affiliate of the Mets single-A system, all the way up to double-A Binghamton while posting a 3.03 ERA and 117 WHIP. His 160 strikeouts were the most by a Mets farmhand, while his 34.2% strikeout rate ranked 5th amongst all minor league qualifiers, and obviously those numbers have only increased here in 2025. Standing at 6'1", Tong can look like the second coming of Tim Lincecum. Remember his prime with the San Francisco Giants in 2009 and 2008? Absolutely incredible. Won a World Series as well, I believe. His fastball only shows average velocity in the 91 to 94 mile an hour range, topping out at about 95.8, but it plays well above that with elite-induced vertical break. Now, from that intro video, you saw the way that his mechanics worked, and I'll show this a little bit more when we look at his statistics, but the way that he tilts his head is really, really interesting, and I believe that that is going to throw off hitters, but again, we'll talk about that in just a second. It averages above 20 inches in front of StatCast cameras in the FSL. That is why he has such a high spin rate. Again, we'll talk that when we talk the advanced metrics. He plays off that high pitch with a 74 to 76 mile an hour curve that he can drop in with above 65 inches of vertical drop, over 5 feet for early strikes on the tunnel off the heater for a K. That is incredible. When you are talking about keeping a hitter off balance and you have a curveball that drops about 5.5 feet, you're talking easily a ball that drops in for a strike. Someone that says, oh, that ball is above my head, no way it's a strike, drops in there for a strike. Or something that starts at the top of the strike zone and then finds its way to the dirt. absolutely lethal pitch right there for Tong. He leaned on an 82 to 84 slider early in 2024 as he was looking to hone the pitch, but an 84 to 86 changeup thrown with a Vulcan grip, so a Vulcan changeup, was better at generating whiffs as a rare arm slide offering for him. He's increased his usage with the cambio in 2025, following a slight shift in where he held the baseball and has held that swing and miss rate. Last thing that MLB.com has to say is Tong's walk rate crept up as he went up a level, every single level, and it moved up again a touch in 2025. That is the only, I guess, concern when it comes to Tong. But then again, we had concerns about Nolan McLean's control. It was shown in his MLB debut, and then he walked 0 batters in his most recent start, 7 full innings. There is some concern that more advanced batters can lay off his north to south approach. Keep in mind, a 5.5 foot curveball is either going to be a ball to a strike that a hitter is going to recognize and end up swinging at, or is going to start as a strike and wind up as a ball in the dirt. So these better hitters, these guys that are veterans that have been around the game for so long, they're going to probably recognize that and lay off, meaning Tong is going to have to rely more heavily on his fastball, which could always create a problem. However, that being an unorthodox delivery will be difficult to maintain as he ages. So we'll talk about this. You saw it in the intro video. Could be tough as he progresses in age, but for now, it should be good because he has the momentum and interesting profile of a pitcher who could climb into an MLB rotation by 2026. Obviously here now 2025, especially if the strikeouts keep coming. So with that, let's go ahead and look at his basic statistics here in 2025 and his MILB career stats. A 1.43 ERA, like we've said here in 2025, 2.54 over his minor league career, 113 2/3 innings pitched this year with a sub-1 whip at 0.92, 10-5, a ton of strikeouts, leading the minor leagues in Ks. And you look at it, he progressed so well. Not great in 2023, like we heard from MLB.com, but rose onto the scene in 2024, went from Port St. Lucie up to Brooklyn, that being low A to high A, and then from high A to double A Binghamton. From there, he started out in Binghamton this year, was lethal in 102 innings pitched, and then pitched another 11 2/3 at AAA. Just 2 times has he started and pitched at the AAA level, and he has been elite at it, and therefore gets a shot here in the MLB. As we mentioned, and as I talked about, he's got that weird thing like you saw in the intro video where he kind of has his neck so far to the side. Now, we saw from MLB.com that might not be sustainable as he ages, but that is definitely going to be lethal and keep hitters off balance. So that is all of the in-depth stats, and like I promised, let's look at the advanced metrics. His spin rate, the RPM on his fastball is nuts at above 2,200 because his curveball has 2,600 RPM. That measures the spin on the baseball. And when you look at these advanced stats, it is all red. He does get hit a little bit hard, but that is what's going to happen when you throw about 95, 96 miles an hour. Everything else, expected on base percentage, expected batting average, his pitching score, strikeout rate, avoiding the barrel, anything that you can think of as an advanced metric is low for Jonah Tong. He is going to be a stud. I'm hyped that the Mets have brought him up. I really think he's just going to jump onto the scene and be elite. Now, that's my opinion, so go down there in the comment section and let me know if you agree. Maybe you disagree. Do you think Tong is going to be legit? Do you think he's going to be a keystone for the Mets? I personally do. I can't wait for Brandon Sproat to now join McLean and Tong. I think that's going to be a lethal 3. You pair that with Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, maybe Clay Holmes still in the rotation, David Peterson, of course. I think the Mets have a ton of really good pitching on their hands. Reminds me of the 2015 Mets, which obviously made the World Series. So hopefully these guys can bring a Commissioner's Trophy over here to New York. But again, let me know in the comments if maybe you disagree with the move being this early, and let me know what you think of Jonah Tong overall. I think he's a stud. Can't wait to watch him pitch on Friday against the Miami Marlins. But for now, that's all the time I have for you today. Again, let me know what you think about Tong and the call-up. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this one. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.